What does it take to be successful? Let me share this with you. It's a story which I believe represents what I call the American dream. I'm going to talk about one individual. I'm going to talk about his company a little bit. But the main reason I tell this particular story is I believe it will give every person who hears it a considerable amount of hope. And hope is the most important ingredient I have to sell. For the umpteenth time in this series, if there's hope in the future, there is power in the present. This particular individual's name, Dave Longaberger. Took him 2 years to get out of the first grade. It took him 3 years to get out of the fifth grade. He was 20 years old when he finished high school. He was functioning at the 8th grade level. Last year, his company, and incidentally, he had epilepsy and he stuttered. Now, you look at that profile and tell me what are his chances in life. Last year, though, his company did in excess of $200 million worth of business, and they project over $1 billion yearly business by the year 2000. Now, how did he get there? What happened along the way? Well, let's do a little exploring. When he was 7 years old, he went to work in a grocery store. And a 7-year-old learned something that if each one of us will learn, it'll be helpful in our careers. He learned that the best way to keep the boss off of his back was to anticipate what the boss wanted and do it before the boss had to tell him. Now, how many of you employers like that kind of an employee? Can I see your hand? Doesn't that give them employment security right there? Okay. What did he do as a child? Well, he started shoveling snow, mowing grass, delivering papers, and hauling trash. Interestingly enough, his family started calling him the 25-cent millionaire. Isn't it ironic sometimes how when you hang a label on somebody like that, it does take place? Now, he was a student of life. See, most of the times we miss some of the obvious. For example, how many of you wear a wristwatch? May I see your hands, please? Do not look at your wristwatch. Let me repeat, do not look at it. I want to ask you 3 questions about your wristwatch. How many of you have had your wristwatch at least a year? Can I see your hand? Did you know the average American looks at their wristwatch over 200 times a day? Now, that includes the last few minutes before lunch and the last few minutes before the end of the day, but over 200 times a day. That's an awful lot of times to look at your watch. Now, that means that you've looked at it, if you've had it a year, thousands of times. You ought to know what's there, shouldn't you? I'm going to ask you 3 questions about your watch. Bet you can't even get them all 3 right. Now, do not answer out loud. Let me say it again. Do not answer out loud. Question number 1, does your wristwatch have regular numerals or Roman numerals? How many of you just missed the first one? Can I see your hand? Come on now, fess up. All right. Second question, does it have numbers at all? Or are they slashes or dots or blanks or emblems? Or none of the above? Answer the question to yourself. And the third question, what is at the 12 o'clock slot? Straight up and down. Get a picture of your watch now. What's at the 12 o'clock slot? What's at the 3 o'clock slot? What's at the 6 o'clock slot? And what's at the 9 o'clock slot? Get that picture in your mind. Now that you've thought about it, I want you to carefully, as a matter of fact, maybe for the first time since you have owned your watch, I want you to very carefully look at your watch. Now, I can't always distinguish murmurs and giggles, but I've got an idea some of you might have missed one of the questions. How many of you folks who've had your watch over a year missed at least one of the questions? Can I see your hands, please? All right. Now, you remember just a few seconds ago when I said, now I want you to carefully, as a matter of fact, maybe for the first time since you've owned your watch, I want you to very carefully look at your watch. Remember me saying that? You either do or you don't. Okay, now, that's right. You remember, all right. Now, were the instructions clear? Okay, what time is it? Truth of the matter is, most of us miss a lot of the things that goes on in life. Dave Longaberger was not a brilliant student in school, but he was a brilliant student in life. He early on started learning things by observing things. For example, with 14 children in the family, they only had 1 bathroom. One of his early goals was to have his own bathroom in life. And if you don't think 1 minute is important, it depends entirely on which side of the bathroom door you're on. All right? He learned to set goals early on. He discovered that if he worked in a certain way and did certain things, he had a better chance to get the things that he wanted. For example, when he opened his restaurant and when he sold fuller brushes, when he did anything, he always thought in terms of my customers, not the companies, not the customers, but my customers. And he knew if he treated his customers properly, he had a chance to improve himself and improve his business. Now, one thing he learned was this: all jobs have similarities, and that is they all involve people skills. Doesn't make any difference what the job is. It is a person-to-person thing. He also learned any job could be fun. He discovered that the more he enjoyed his work and demonstrated that he enjoyed the work, that the more fun the customers had and the more the customers bought from him. He learned from everybody and everywhere that he went. For example, he was in the Army for a spell and he learned the advantages of uniformity and control and consistency and the advantages of having a central headquarters. He went to graduate school on life. Now, basically, he was a risk taker. There's risk in everything we do. He scraped up a few dollars to open a little restaurant there in Dresden, Ohio. He had already had a little grocery store. When he got ready to open his restaurant, he had $135 in cash left. He bought $135 worth of food to serve breakfast with. When he had sold breakfast, he went back to the store and bought the food for lunch. When he finished lunch, he bought some more food for the dinner. And that's the way it literally got started. His family had been in the basket-making business years earlier. His dad had quit making them, except a few along the way. 1965, he decided he wanted to reopen the business. Every member of his family said, "Dave, you can't do that." They tried to discourage him. But he'd been looking at imported baskets, and they weren't of the same quality that they had been making. And so he decided he was going to get back in the business. Was it spectacularly successful always? No way. In 1986, they owed over $5.5 million. Not counting the IRS bill, they owed $1.5 million. There are about 5,000 people involved. Most of them are people that distributed and made and worked for him. With all of that debt, he went to them and said, "As you know, I've always been upfront, straightforward, and told you the truth. This business is going to make it. I'm going to ask you to trust me, and in some way or other, we will pay the bill." Because his word had always been his bond, everybody stayed with him. What does he do that is different? Well, he makes every person feel important. Every basket that is produced by them carries the signature of the person who made it. Dave Longaberger makes every individual know that they are unique. He has a unique way of management style too. He doesn't have the supervisors evaluating the workers. He has the workers evaluating the supervisors. And when those evaluations come in, he knows what he has to do. Dave Longaberger is a people person almost to an extreme. He says that if you take care of your people, they're going to take care of you. If you let them shine, make them important, they'll want to come to work. Then it becomes not just a job, it is a family of people. Their perspective is always solid. He uses common sense in virtually everything. The golden rule is the principle on which they operate, and he says competition is the best thing that ever happened to him, because your competition will point out your weaknesses. They will teach you things. Think of all of the lessons we're discovering here just in one example. They're the best source of information. I'm talking about competition now. But the really big thing that happened to him, now remember, here's a guy, when he graduated from high school at age 20, he was reading at the 8th grade level. Now what set him apart? He learned to appreciate his own uniqueness, that he was absolutely different. He knew he loved people. He respected people. He got along with people. He started using the things that he did have. He also believes that every company should put something back into the community in which they are living. For example, in Dresden, Ohio today, it's one of the neatest, cleanest cities that you will ever find. It's a small place, but they pay for cutting the grass up and down Main Street. because that attracts visitors. Now, the fact that they have this nice factory there and these restaurants there that they run gives him a reason for doing that, but he is the one who initiated that action. He truly has an over-the-top attitude. I like to use these phrases. He moved his company from survival to stability from the time they'd gotten so deeply in debt, from stability to success, and from success to significance.